What up, nerds, and welcome to another motherly episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 404, recorded Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Tonight, we're talking about the winner of the January poll, which was Barbarian. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy Randu. What's up, man?
Hey, man. What's up?
Why the long face, brother?
Oh, it's a new year. It's January. There's no Halloween, no Christmas coming up. It's just little old MLK Day out there in a wilderness. Nothing but memorials.
But you're not stoked about Valentine's Day, Randy?
No. Who would be excited for that?
You get
I'm not
chocolates.
Excited. I don't get shit. I provide.
I think you get shit every day, if I'm being honest with you, but that's well-deserved.
I also provide that.
Hallelujah. Last but not least, calling in from Saxonville, Florida, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy, Ricky Ticky Tabby Stains.
Ricky Ticky Tabby, the mongoose is gone.
Dude, that song will get stuck in your fucking brain.
I don't know that I've ever heard that song before, which
really?
Makes me wonder if it's like, is it a major song that I just should know?
We were listening to it before you hopped on, so it's fresh on my brain.
It seems like one of those songs that's like meant to be a needle drop, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
never heard of that.
I don't know what's happening right now.
I love the baby face Justin Long that is behind you, Juice.
Oh yeah, behind the scenes, YouTube.
Is that from a
That's the real
movie?
Justin's got to stick together.
The real Jeepers Creepers. I'll tell you that.
I looked at a couple one. I needed a little extra space to keep my head. A lot of them centered themselves, so I need this brick wall here.
They're
you
so
know,
self-centered.
They need to make room for Soju.
Gotta make room for Soju, Justin.
Now,
Long.
campers, make room for Soju.
There's always room for Soju.
No close dancing.
Us Justins have a deep connection. You know, we stick together. So
a long connection.
Me and Biebs, me and Timberlake, me and Long. Yeah.
Save room for Justin, y'all. Before we get into the main event, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. We do have a brand new poll currently posted on our Patreon website. Our February poll theme is Women in Horror Month, and we chose 3 movies that are directed by female artistes for you to vote between. They are Raw, Censor, and Slumber Party Massacre. The original.
Whoa. Bob, how are those numbers looking in the first week of 2023? Haven't seen you since last year, my guy.
2023.
You're looking haggard.
Don't I know it? Slumber Party Massacre is currently in first place. After that, we got Raw and then Censor.
All right, cool.
Is it pretty close? Is it tight? Is it not tight?
It's not tight. I guess you could say it's very loose.
Well,
but I wouldn't, because I'm not a cad.
Good for you. I think Slumber Party had like 60%, and then the other two were like 20-something, 30-something around there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow, people going for the classic this time around. I love it.
I'm surprised, honestly. I did not anticipate that winning at all. I mean, it hasn't won yet, but you know,
it is January 4th.
Yeah,
we've never once guessed correctly. I don't think so.
Not good at it.
Yeah.
So get your votes in before the end of January. You got a long time to do that, and then we'll see what movie we're talking about in February. In other Patreon news, we're dropping another brand new mini cast this Friday, the 6th. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole back catalog of Patreon exclusive episodes. We have over 80 on there now. And this Friday is, Justin, you're talking about the entirety of season 1 of Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday, that was big hits with the goth kids downtown.
Downtown.
And no one else.
Yeah, you know.
Famously overlooked series Wednesday on
Downtown
Netflix.
goth kids love it.
Just keeping the lights on for Miss Adams.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, big on Netflix. Jenna Ortega came out the end of November, but trying to wrap up some of the, stuff that came out last year. We were covering a lot of movies, kind of scrambling to cover a lot of the new movies that we couldn't cover on the show for minicast. So I thought, most of the time I was doing shows before, so thought I'd get back to a little of that. So yeah, I wanted to cover Wednesday. I went through it. It was pretty solid, pretty solid.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that show really, except for that goddamn dance.
That dance has blown the fuck up.
Over the dance at this point.
Why is it so cool. Popular?
Because she's so adorable.
Sure, yeah.
It's fun to watch the first maximum 3 times.
Yeah.
But
it is.
But once I start seeing the underwater renditions and the old grandpa renditions, it gets pretty.
The thing is I really have to fight the crusty old man inside myself because
you gotta fight him.
I gotta fight him. I gotta fight him off.
The Nightman. You gotta fight the Nightman off.
Fight the Nightman off.
You'll become the Nightman
because
spirit of the Nightman.
At the core of it, she that kind of character and even that dance and that being yourself and stuff is such a good kind of little role model for younger people. It's designed for younger people. Not that nobody else can enjoy it, but you're going to see a ton of them at the cons. You're going to see a ton of them, in the cosplays. But at the core of it, it's very endearing in a way.
It's for old men too.
Yeah. The ones you have to fight off that are inside of you.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to fight off.
Oh my God.
Let's not. So especially with the movie we're covering, let's just not.
You can check out Justin's thoughts on Wednesday, dropping this Friday the 6th over on our Patreon website. Speaking of Patreon, we have a brand new Patreon supporter we got to give mad shouts out to.
Shit.
Finally.
A big, gigantic thank you to your boy Steve D for signing up on Patreon and showing us love.
They call him Steve Big D. That's what I am.
Steve D.
Oh, Stevie D. All you guys contribute goes right back into the show. It really does help us keep the show going. As is tradition around these parts, we owe Steve D the straight chilling salute. This goes out to Steve.
Slap my ass.
Ooh, I needed an ass slap to start the year off. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, gotta wake up after that late night on New Year.
Eat.
Steve's got a firm grip.
He's gripping you?
Well, you gotta linger for a second. You gotta.
You do. I see.
Hey, we got some YouTube
I've been doing this all wrong.
We got some YouTube shit going on, Juice. You posted some bullshit. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, so just right before the turn of the year, me and Bob posted a brand new YouTube video on our YouTube page. We were talking about the top 50 horror films of 2022. That wasn't even all the census. Isn't it, my friend? Yeah, that wasn't. If I hadn't slacked off, we potentially could have done top 60, but top 50 is good enough. It's a pretty hefty video. It's about 36 minutes long, and we try to breeze through it.
We tried to be so fast.
Yeah, but it still took so long.
36 minutes is pretty good for covering at least 50 movies, right?
Yeah.
Or is it 50 total? Because you guys
50,
combined.
50
right?
total. Yeah, combined. Okay. Yeah, we don't do 50 a piece. Yeah,
I don't
50.
watch our content. So.
No, what? So check that out if you're looking for some maybe more films you're not familiar with that came out in 2022. If you're trying to kind of catch up on last year, it was an amazing year for horror. There was a lot to talk about, a lot of quality stuff. Even at 50, this isn't the bottom of the barrel. This isn't your Monsters. This isn't your Halloween Ends. This is still some good stuff around 50 and 49. So me and Bob combined our list. So there was some, overall there was way more than 60 for sure. So yeah, we got some good stuff all throughout. So check that out at youtube.com/straight chilling podcast.
Do your thing, cuz.
Do your thing, cuz. Sweet. I I think that's all the housekeeping we got, I believe.
By next week, is anything else coming out? Not before next
not
episode.
before,
we do have new content coming, but not
More
before next
shit.
episode.
More
Yeah.
shit. So I guess our house is clean.
Oh, fuck yeah.
This house is clean.
I missed you boys.
Fuck yeah,
It's been
brother.
too long.
It feels good to clean this house.
I love a clean house, brother.
Oh, yeah, brother.
Well, let's get into the main event. We're talking about Barbarian, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Were you
Bobby,
saying
describe in detail which copy of Barbarian you have.
how many? How much did it cost?
You cannot purchase this as of yet physically.
Those
I thought you
sons
could.
of bitches.
Nah, I don't even think you can pre-order it. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on.
God.
I don't know what's going on.
It is not in the file.
Were you saying boo or boobarian?
Who earns?
I was saying Barbarian.
This movie is streaming on HBO Max currently, so it's still pretty easy to find. This was a newer movie, came out 2022, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 42 minutes. This was written and directed by Zach Cregger from Whitest Kids You Know fame. It stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgard, Justin Long, Richard Brake, some other folks. Plot synopsis brought to you by IMDb is as follows. A woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she's rented is not what it seems. Understatement.
Whoa. Is there a spooky basement?
No.
Nah, dog.
I see.
So we've all seen this before. We talked about it a little bit on our 2022 year-end review episode. We tried to keep it a little brief. But gentlemen, would you recommend people check out Barbarian? Randu, kick us off.
Yeah, if you're listening to this show, the presumption is that you are a horror head of some variety. And this one probably scratches that itch stronger than most this year, just being a straight horror film. That's not to say it's it's without its trips and turns and without its intricacies, but it is pretty definitively a horror film that is widely loved within the community. So I think it's worth a look, if only to keep up, but beyond that, I'd say it's pretty much worth your time. So
Awesome. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, if you're looking for a thrill, this one should give it to you. This is pretty straight horror, and it's got a lot of those scares that you're looking for typically when you watch a horror film. This is one of those ones that was kind of one of those big surprise successes from last year. And of those, I think it's one of the most, successful compared to the Smiles or the Terrifier 2s or whatever. I think this one is kind of more upper tier in that realm. But yeah, we'll talk about some of its flaws. But as far as just watching a good kind of scary film, I think you'll enjoy this one. Bob, would you recommend people check out Barbarian?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like of the movies that came out last year, this was one of the most enjoyable theatrical watches for me, which is not in theaters anymore, but still, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride, and it will definitely serve you well as a horror fan, I think. So if you haven't seen it, try and go in as blind as you can. They did a really good job with the marketing on this movie without really spoiling anything.
Yeah, they did.
But it's been a while, so I'm sure if you're on the internet at all, it's probably been spoiled at this point. But
parts of it, certainly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
On your TikToks,
Your fucking
your
kicking and talking.
Snapchats,
Your slap chats.
Your slap chops.
You're gonna love my nuts. We're gonna spoil the shit out of this movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
Tell me more about your nuts, Bob.
You're gonna love
Or
it.
just give me a plop synopsis.
I'll give you both. I'm gonna spoil you. So
They're one and the same.
here is the entire plot for Barbarian.
Oh, here we go.
Our main character, Tess Marshall, travels to Detroit for a job interview and books an Airbnb in a rundown neighborhood. When she arrives at the house, she finds it's been double booked and is already occupied by a young man named Keith. At first, she's put off, but begins warming to Keith and decides to share the house with him. The next day, Keith leaves for work. Tess goes to her job interview. The woman interviewing her warns her about the neighborhood, says she shouldn't be staying in it. When she returns to the house, she's chased inside by a homeless man yelling at her to leave. She goes into the basement to get some toilet paper and gets locked in. She then finds a secret door leading to a hallway with a dingy room at the end, complete with a bed, bucket, camcorder, and bloody handprint on the wall. Keith arrives and lets her out of the basement. When Tess explains what she's found, Keith insists upon seeing it for himself. He goes downstairs and doesn't respond to Tess's calls. She goes down after him and finds out the hallway she found has another hidden door with a staircase leading to a secret subterranean level of the house. She hears Keith screaming for help and follows the screams. They are both attacked by a naked, deformed woman who kills Keith by bashing his head into the wall. Smash cut to an actor by the name of AJ Gilbride driving his car in California who receives a phone call from his agent explaining he's been fired from a project due to allegations of rape made by his co-star. In order to shoulder the legal fees, he is forced to sell some rental properties he owns in Detroit. He travels to Detroit to inspect the properties, one of which is the house Tess and Keith are staying in. When AJ arrives, he also discovers the hidden staircase and is elated about the additional square footage. As he begins measuring the bonus rooms, he runs into the deformed woman and falls into a pit alongside Tess. Then we are hit with a flashback to the 1980s. It shows us the original owner of the rental property. His name is Frank. He would abduct women and hold them in the underground tunnels. He would also rape the women and videotape himself doing so. He would then rape the children these women would bear. And then we jump back to the present. AJ refuses... Yes, do you need
the matter-of-fact tone is troubling to me.
That's the one they would bear.
I understand, but also...
I don't, it's what happens in the movie. We jump back to present day. AJ refuses to drink from a bottle offered to him by the deformed woman Tess refers to as Mother. She pulls AJ out of the pit and forces him to breastfeed, allowing Tess to narrowly escape. The homeless man from earlier warns Tess to leave the neighborhood as the mother comes out at night to hunt. AJ then escapes the mother and finds another hidden room the mother seems to be afraid of. He enters and he sees Frank laying in the bed. He's watching videotapes. AJ assumes he's a victim of the mother until he sees what's on the tapes. Frank then pulls out a revolver and kills himself. Tess eventually reaches a gas station and calls the police. They show up to the house and blame her wild story on drug use. They leave without investigating. Tess breaks into the house to get her car keys, allowing her to run over the mother when she exits the house, seemingly killing her. She goes back into the basement to rescue AJ, and he accidentally shoots her with Frank's gun. The two escape the house and see the mother is gone. They then hide with the homeless man from earlier. He explains the mother is the product of multi-generational incest committed by Frank. The mother then shows up and beats the homeless man to death with his own arm. She chases Tess and AJ up a water tower. AJ pushes Tess off the tower to save himself, and the mother leaps off to shield her from the fall. As AJ tries to justify his actions to Tess, the mother awakens to gouge out his eyes and rip his head apart. The mother then tries to comfort Tess and bring her back to the basement, and Tess reluctantly shoots and kills the mother, then hobbles off into the sunrise. Roll them credits.
Whoa.
That's a lot. A lot
That's
happens.
a lot.
That is a lot, man.
Mm-hmm.
Speak English, Doc. We ain't scientists.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot happens in this fucking movie. So this movie is praised, I think, probably more than anything else for its surprises, and it's not really twists. Like I don't think anybody is. I think correctly, people are not calling it twists, which is like the impulse that we inherited from the Shyamalan golden era.
Just swerves. It just takes a lot of swerves.
It just takes a lot of unexpected avenues. Go ahead, Bob.
It's got a very like atypical story structure. Like it's not broken out into like 3 clean acts like most movies we see are. Even when we talk about like Shyamalan and he has like, you know, crazy twists, like that happens at the end typically, and it like makes you reevaluate everything you've seen before, but it's still a very like, generally speaking, a very like typical story structure. This is not that. I think a lot of it has to do with the writer director. He like wrote a short first and foremost, which I believe is just like the first 30 or 40 minutes of this movie.
I see.
And then expounded from there and like came up with the whole history of the house and all that stuff. So it does have like a very stark turn, but like I think it works for some people and not for everybody.
Really?
So that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm one of those people where, especially on my second watch, so I had this pretty high. We just did our top 10 and even our top 50 video. I had this pretty high, like squeaking into the top 10. But on the second watch, if I had watched this before, it probably would have dropped its 8 to 10 spaces on this second watch.
Good God.
And really, it's this third act. So it's interesting that you say like, oh, he had kind of like the first half, because I feel like, to me, even though this takes a lot of, different turns and stuff, I still think it's pretty easy to break this into a pretty clean 3 acts. And the first one to me is the strongest. Second one, pretty solid, but I was like really sour on a lot of the third act this time around. And I think the first time I wasn't so sour on it was because it was such a surprise. There's no way to kind of anticipate a lot of what's going to happen in this film. And it's a fun thrill ride. But once and you have to kind of really sit and think about it, and those twists and turns aren't there as a surprise, and you're really kind of evaluating what's going on in the third act, I did not care for that third act significantly more than like the first time I watched it around.
I had a different experience than that. Bob, what about you?
Okay.
Yeah, I think I had sort of the polar opposite experience, to be honest. First,
where you like the third act more, or
No,
in what
It's
way?
not the third act for me. Go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Bob.
I was the first time I watched it, I was sort of like, yeah, that was like a fun roller coaster ride, but I don't think there's much more going on. And then I like kind of thought about it more and watched it again, and it sort of made me appreciate the act twists and turns and stuff that were going on. And I think there is a little more going. Like the theme is heavier than I thought initially when I first watched it, I guess.
I would agree to like, I think you're able to think about like, I think there's a pretty like central running theme that goes through this, that the three like connect. I was almost going to say, well, but I actually don't agree with that statement. So, but yeah, I think you're right though. I think it is easier to kind of on the second watch say like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of see what's going on here and how they connect. And so I agree with that.
See, like to some extent, I agree, but I think that like I clocked the theme harder than anything else the first time I watched this. Like it definitely like, I think that what we're all going to agree on is that this is definitely a fun ride. Like this, like experientially, this is a good time, period, I think. But the things that and when I first watched it, I was like, man, this feels a little like heavy handed, and then kind of like devolves into sort of what seems kind of silly at the end. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that, considering the like heavy subject matter or whatever. But watching it this time around, like, I don't know that it necessarily like improves on that so much, but I really like the way the pieces interlock. The 3-act structure is really more of a 6-act structure where you're introduced. It's like chapters from a story rather than, just like following a typical narrative, like you were saying, like it's time jumps and all that stuff, but it's the same structure each act. It's introduce a character, get to know them a little bit, put them in harm's way, and then cut off that main storyline. You like the main storyline is happening in the tunnels. It's what's happening to Tess and go on. And then you jump backwards. You get introduced to a new character and figure out how he fits into things. And then he winds up in the same place. And then you progress the main storyline of the main sequence of events in the film. And then you jump backwards again. You see Richard Brake's character, and then you get some context for that as well. And then you have sort of like the ultimate confluence of all those things in the final act. So I like seeing the way that was structured a little bit clearer. And I also really liked, I did like the ending. I think that I could understand why people didn't, but to me, it did what I wanted. Like what people say about like Malignant and shit, that it goes kind of off the rails intentionally, all that stuff. The thing that I don't really buy about that movie, that I don't really like, it just didn't hit me that way. It kind of hits me that way in this movie, where it goes kind of off the rails in a way that I think is still true to the theme, but is like not so silly as to take away the impact of the scares. And that's what was kind of fucked up to me about Malignant, is I was never afraid in that movie. And this movie does great fucking scares that helps sell that forward for me. So I think watching it a second time really helped those things. Like, it sawed off some of the edges. It's still got some problems. And I think those problems are like nuts and bolts, you know, things that you could really get into the weeds with that are totally fair to criticize. Primarily, like, first and foremost being the mutant creature and the timeline with which you create a mutant creature like that. Like, I tried to do the math in my head. I was like, okay, Richard Brake in his flashback is 30 years old, say. That seems low, but he's like 30 years old. And it jumps ahead. Like, if this, I did the math, it's like something like 60, 65 years between then and where he is now. If he's 100 years old, if he's,
I don't think that's true.
No,
I'm doing like the most
I think it's like
extreme
30
version.
to 40 years.
You're probably right. What I'm saying is like at the least truncated, given
guy,
the most timeline.
They the homeless man in the last act, when he's like spouting all his, you know, exposition.
Yeah, she's been in there 40
everything
years,
forever. Yeah, he said
she has been in there 40 years.
Is that what he? Okay,
it's what he says, which means she's been in there 40 years.
All right.
If he's 100 now and he's 30 in that previous shot, that's a gap of 60 years or 70 years, right? I don't think you get like enough generations of these incest rape mole people babies to produce this creature. And that's where things like it just, that timeline is really, really off. And I could
think
really
you're being very forgiving, even.
I know I am. I was trying to meet the movie as close. Like I don't see how that's possible that man could still be alive and also have created an offspring of an offspring of an offspring enough so that you have this whole other species of creature, basically. There's things like that still don't work on a nuts and bolts level, but I kind of didn't care as much because the silliness of what happens in the last act and even the second act to some extent it's still scary. It's silly and scary. And I think that is impressive enough to where I just didn't mind so much.
I think there's a huge disconnect for me in what they set up in the first act and how it accomplishes what it needs to. I think the first act is the strongest for me and the most brilliant and feels like the most kind of like developed, which was interesting to hear Bob say that the first act was what came first. And I could see why, because it really does the best job to me of setting up the tension, of setting up these things, but subverting a lot of the expectations of what you expect in a kind of movie like this, which really sets up the thrills for later in this movie. So where I feel the disconnect is coming is like, I feel like this guy pulled off this really brilliant idea to subvert kind of expectations and still get his theme across in a really kind of clever way that's not heavy-handed, that kind of shows you instead of tells you. And then when he had to make a full length, he kind of had to deliver on what's in the basement, or like kind of pay that tension off that he was able to establish. I haven't seen the short. I'm just kind of guessing, but to me, this time around, I'm glad that you yourself mentioned the kind of silliness of the third act, because it seems like the first act wants you to take it very seriously in a very grounded type of way, and a very grounded type of logic and things like that. And the leaps that it takes to pull some of the stuff off in the third act this time around really had me going like, what? You know, this is like really a stretch on not just like one topic or one thing, on like many. Honestly, I was having a Bob kind of moment. We don't want to like bring it up too much of like the lodge kind of things, where I was like, this just doesn't make a lick of sense in this area and this area and this area. Like 3 or 4 things just do not make sense, where the first act really wants you to take it very, very seriously and grounds itself like concretely to this like serious kind of premise. And I just like, it was too much of a leap for me to take this time.
I'd say you like, the thing is like the beginning has its problems too for me. Like, it has the one major thing that really stuck in my craw the first time I watched this was the decision making of the protagonist. Was Tess consistently making insane decisions that endanger herself from like pretty much from the jump, like doing things like I this time around I was a little softer towards that also, and I think the reason is because I kind of got more of a sense that it was out of just like a sense of duty and she has sort of a lack of self-preservation, but also a strong like moral compass that she has to help this guy or whatever. And that can be hard for somebody to like swallow if it means like you just escaped this thing twice and you're going the fuck back in there. Like
and the
shit
third
like
act.
that.
Okay,
like
that's that third act.
Well, no, like no, but like the beginning too. Like, I would have left there instantly. Like if I was in her shoes, like I don't know. There's nothing that would have kept me in this rundown neighborhood with this mystery man who's in the house I'm supposed to be in. Like, no matter how nice he seems, no matter how, like, that seems like I'm surprised that didn't bother you more, Justin, because you always have this like axe to throw against, social politeness and the causing you to put yourself into dangerous situations.
Well, that's a good point, and that's actually kind of why I liked it, because they did play on that, but subverted the expectations because they set up this really good tension where Skarsgard, I think, really does a good job here. And the casting is really good because he's a little swirly. And kind of play.
He is Pennywise. Like
I know. Yeah.
It's a great casting, Cole. Yeah.
Culturally, it's a great cast.
He is.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And that whole tension, because you feel it, and that's the whole thing of like, if he had been the guy, then you would have been like, you dumb piece of shit. Of course you don't do this. But that's the fun of the subversion of those expectations of like, even the weird little things that he does. I think it's very clever, and it works on this kind of tightrope where he's, like, no, I'm the good guy. I'm going to go get your bags. And you're like, no.
It makes for a more fun viewing experience. But if you're if I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, I had a hard time with that the first time.
Well,
whereas in this time,
she was like pretty careful because she's like, can I see your reservation? She kind of goes through all the steps. Yeah, she looks at his license, takes a picture. I wish they kind of would have showed her like sending it to a friend. She does take the picture.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Ahead,
like the almost the thesis of this movie is like she says it whenever they're having their little conversation on the couch. She's like, she says like you're a man, the world is different for you. Like she's forced to be more careful. And then the movie like shows you many reasons as to why that is. But then throughout the course of the movie, she regularly puts herself in harm's way, which is very contradictory. Like she keeps going back into this house to save these complete fucking strangers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It really frustrated me the first time I saw the movie. But then when it got real goofy, I was like, okay, well, I don't really need to take that first bit that seriously anyways, because we're in Raimi land now. It's goofy as shit underneath the house. So that like let me sort of give the movie a little extra grace, to be honest.
See, like to me, it was like I just kind of like felt like the character. Really, I just felt like the character at the beginning, like she did a few things that were smart, but the smartest thing to do would be to leave and go like work out where you're going to stay, like somewhere not in the middle of what is very deteriorated part of town, a place that she is actually warned directly not to go by the person she interviews with. She's like, you shouldn't be there. Like, and somebody runs and screams at her house. Like there's a million reasons to leave throughout the entire first act, and she doesn't take those opportunities. It's by sheer luck that she guesses right about Skarsgard's character. It could have easily gone the other way. And I agree. It makes it for like a fun, like, oh, is he, isn't he? Like that's fun for us as viewers. Yeah. But it didn't ingratiate me to the character the first time. It took me the second time to really realize, okay, she's an altruist at heart. And so that is what's motivating her to see the best in people, to put faith in people. But like the first time I saw it, that was not my experience. I was just like, why would you put yourself in these positions consistently? You don't need to be.
I mean, so in the first half, I feel like at least they do a better job of giving those excuses a little more weight of it's fucking pouring. She doesn't know the area. So the next day she does an interview and then the woman tells her, oh my God, you're in that area. But she's not from this town. She can look around, but also
she's been driving around.
It's night. Fucking pouring absolute rain. So even like exploring the neighborhood, you don't get a really good feel when it's fucking pouring rain.
I don't know, man. It doesn't take much more than a headlight on your car to see that half of the buildings are literally half there.
But also too, like they give it some way of like, there's literally, she calls some hotels. There's nowhere to stay. There's a convention. Like, it's not.
I would not have done that in the house.
It's not foolproof. Absolutely. But also it gives the same excuse too of like you said, okay, you get a sense of this is a bad neighborhood. You're not from here. You don't really know. You shouldn't sit in your car either.
No,
The
smart thing to do would be to immediately start driving, put it on speakerphone, and try and figure some shit out as you head to a populated part of town.
Yeah. And I agree in sense. I just feel like they did a little bit better job of setting up some reasonable obstacles as opposed to the third act where she's literally talking to the cops and they're like, nah, you're just this crazy crackhead. And I was like, where you're standing having this conversation, there is your car with your fucking registration. I'd be like, run my plates. You can pull my license from my plates of the car you're looking at. I'm not a fucking crackhead. Like, scan this and scan the man's car who's in front of me, and you could literally see that he owns the building, and I'm telling you that he's inside, and it's that whole police situation. Her car's right there.
Well, no, about him owning the house. It's a small thing.
I think, he says, she says he's down here and he says, what? I own this house. And she doesn't live here or whatever.
Okay.
I think, So anyways, that whole cop situation was the dumbest fucking shit I've seen in a movie in a long time.
I disagree. Like, I understand. What? I agree that that's a smart, like, she should have done those things. But the idea that she's like just come through a fucking insanely traumatic experience, and the police in that situation, it's not complete. Like, their behavior is spot on. And that's what I appreciated about it. Like, that to me, it's like they're being called to some other situation where there are shots fired. They see this woman in a bad part of town who's like screaming and who's covered in muck or whatever. They're making a snap judgment and not ever going to look the other way, or not ever going to look at it another way. No, she can tell them to run the plates. If she had done that, I don't think that they would have. I don't think they would have done it, and I think that is the realism that's on display there. I don't see any.
I mean, the window was broken out from the inside. Even though I see that you broke this window, it's like if you broke it from the outside, any basic person could say there's glass on the inside of the house, or you broke out from this house.
But she also doesn't have a key and doesn't own the house, and they're cops. What are they going to do? Like, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to do anything.
That was
it was not that big of a stretch to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's that huge of a stretch, but also getting in the
maybe
weeds
a
little here. I think I really enjoy like the both sides of the coin that this movie is basically. So I was some of the trivia that I found was whenever they were crafting the movie, like cinematography wise, he wanted the upstairs to look like a Fincher movie and the downstairs in the basement and whatnot to look like a Raimi picture. And like, I think that really serves the plot and like the change in like atmosphere and tension that you experience. Like, because as soon as like Justin Long goes down there, like we get this like weird shift in like camera perspective where it's like POV and it's like a wide angle lens.
I love that.
And it's like, oh, this is like we're in a different world down here, and it feels that way, and it makes sense. And I think that's sort of telegraphed to you by like some of the choices that the filmmaker's making here. And that sort of like set me up for what's to come too, and like help me sort of roll with the punches, because we're about to see some like crazy monstrous woman that of course wouldn't really exist, but like I'm along for the ride at that point, I guess. Some of the goofier shit that happens throughout, like when she beats that dude to death with his own arm, like shit like that worked for me. And also like the absolute absurdity of Justin Long's character worked for me as well. He's such a terrible fucking piece of shit.
It's
but when
so
he's
much
like, when he busts out the measuring tape and he's like measuring the extra square footage, he's fucking hilarious.
He's not even worried about.
He's just not even slightly aware that he's in danger.
Pinnacle of shitheadedness, the whole movie, and it's so fucking. He plays that kind of role so fucking well.
He does.
Like, it was like it was. I don't know how much to attribute to the acting or to the writing there, but I think that with another actor, that role could have come off really fucking shallow as like, okay, here's the worst person in the world. And of course, like, I don't know, he brings a level of like not relatability, but like just
he's just likable.
A realism. He seems like the shitheads that you know in life, not like a mustache twirling villain.
Yeah.
And that's what sells it for me. It's like, I could definitely see this guy running into this guy at the bar and him, dropping a slur and me having to back away slowly. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. The things that work for Bob, surprise, surprise, are not really the things that work for me, because I thought that the first half was a lot better at subverting the expectations, where I thought the third act was a lot more heavy-handed and silly. And like her ripping that guy's arm off and beating him with it, if this was a certain kind of movie, then I could be down for that. But what it's like establishes itself as, and then to get there, is like too big of a leap for me. One, because of the things Randy was talking about of like, let's do this flashback to show how this actually works. It's like, it wants to justify itself, like, let me actually show you how it works. And then you're like, okay. Yeah, this guy's raping people. But you're like, wait a second. Why is this woman giant? Why can this woman rip a man's arm?
I think it's more about the point, though. It's not about like the exact math of it all. Like it's sort of the weeds. Like, I don't know. Getting in the weeds again. I think like the overall like point of the movie is interesting, and I think that is really sort of exemplified by seeing Richard Brake and what he does, and like this literal monster of a woman that he has created by his barbaric fucking actions. Like, that's the point of the movie. And yeah, it's like, it's a little goofy, and I get if it doesn't work for somebody, that makes sense. And they could have like gotten the same point across in a more like realistic manner. But I appreciate that they sort of start that way and like amp it up more and more and more. It sort of gives it its own like flavor. Otherwise, we would just have like a straight ahead Fincher movie or a straight ahead Raimi movie. It's a weird blend.
I'm kind of between the two of you guys. Like I kind of agree with that. Where I like the ramp up. To me, it is a big leap. To Justin's point, it is a big leap from point A to point B in this movie. Like, point B is pretty far away from where you expect it to go. But that's kind of what makes it fun, and kind of like, as much as I can pick apart and like my inclination is to pick apart shit like how is she big? How does the nuts and bolts of things, like I mentioned before, like part of me kind of agrees with Bob, where it's like, do I really want to focus on that, or is that defeating the purpose of what this movie is saying? Like it was saying, and the experience of watching the film. Like, does it really even serve me to go down that route? I don't think it did. And to be fair, though, the opposite side of that is they did put those things out there, and if they have flaws, that is something that like you have to acknowledge, or like that can easily be used as a trigger to dislike the movie. And I think that's where I was leaning the first time I watched it. Whereas the second time I was just, I think like Rob, like I had kind of knew the craziness that it was going to go to. So I was willing to sort of like see things as less like I don't need it to stick to a Fincher aesthetic in order for me to enjoy what they're setting up. What they're knocking down is still great. And the other thing is, like, I had an extra appreciation for the way this thing was shot. Bob talks about the POV shot. There's that shot of Justin Long holding his fucking knife out from his face, like shooting out from his face into the darkness. That shit's fucking great. There's a lot of jump scares in this movie that are fucking supremely well justified. They feel like not cheap jump scares. They don't even register as jump scares the first time I saw them. But like things like the flashlight starting to wear. It's a trope. The flashlight starting to go out or whatever, and then strobing the thing towards him. But it works so fucking well, and the creature looks so good. That's the other thing, is like they did the due diligence of making the creature actually scary and not just a CGI Muppet. Like, it looks for real.
It looks fucked,
but it looks fucked up. But then also later, when you see more of it, when things are getting more and more amped up, it's once the mystery is taken away from it, normally that would be a bad thing, but I think it works because you're starting to humanize the monster as another victim of these male fucking egos.
Well, that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit, because there were moments, like, as far as like the weight of what this movie's trying to say, like away from the silliness of how some of it looks, is I think the problem with the blend of like, okay, now we're in Raimi world and we're going to get silly with it. And you're going to have this man's arm ripped off and beat with it. Is there still this thread of heaviness of the theme, which I think is actually very important to this movie and carries from Act 1, 2, and 3, which kind of still makes it hard for me to just go swimming in the silliness. You know, I can sometimes, but for instance, there's this moment, which is two moments, which are powerful in the third act of one, this character of Justin Long. And at this point, knowing, you know, who he is and what a piece of shit he is, and the force feeding of like the breastfeeding. You know, him being put in that situation, in that dread, because it feels dreadful, even though we know what kind of character is, it feels dreadful as a viewer to experience that situation because, you know, so that's great. I think that's pulled off well for the theme of this. And then him coming face to face with this, you know, almost kind of looking in the mirror, you know, obviously he's not as depraved or whatever, but still it's established who he is and what he's done. And so that's a very powerful moment for him to come like face to face with kind of the consequences of another type of life like his. And so that's powerful where I feel it like, so that very weightful theme that's still carried into the silly realm. It's like, okay. But then there's these moments that make me kind of like question that where like I get them, but I feel like it cuts its own legs off a little bit where like, what's her name? Tess? Is it Tess?
Tess.
Yeah, Tess. Tess is like the one to shoot her where it's like the showdown between these two victims of where like she is like hunting her and ramming her with her car, and then she's the one who like shoots her in the face, and the thing like leaping off the water tower. It's just like,
so at the end of the movie, some of this bothered me, some of this I think worked really fucking well, but at the water tower, Justin Long throws Tess off to save himself and says, hey, go get your baby, because at the end of the day, the mother is trying to protect her children. She sees them as her children. So she jumps off after her to try and save her. And somehow, even though she jumps off after her, she breaks Tess's fall. And that's how she like literally saves Tess's life in doing so, which physically doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what happens. But even though it doesn't make sense, it plays into like the point of the movie at the end when Tess kills her. Like it almost feels more like a mercy kill. Like, yeah, she's trying to bring her back to the basement. She doesn't want to go, of course, but she feels so bad for the mother at that point. And like, so did I. I was like, holy shit! Like the mother is not this way by any fault of her own whatsoever. And her biggest fault is seeing these people as her children and trying her best to take care of them. And like, that's her only fault. And like, holy fucking shit, how sad is that? And like, Tess just kind of puts her out of her misery and like sadly shambles on about her business is how I see it.
I totally agree with you. And I think that like that's evidenced by the rest of the movie where it's shown that what motivates Tess is altruism, not self-preservation. If she really like, it's pretty clear that she like this thing, whatever it is, just saved her life. She clearly sees what it is. It is being a victim of some kind now. She knows the backstory of it. It's just saved her life. And then this fucking asshole has just thrown her off that she's trusted. So she's looking at this thing and we can see the connection forming. But when she sees her, she sees a pathetic creature that is beyond repair. And like, she can't, like the humane, the altruistic thing to do is to put it out of its misery. She could have just let it like coo at her or whatever. She could have not killed it. It would not have been great for her. But she's made terrible decisions like that in the past. We have reason to think she would do that, except that the altruistic thing is the other thing to do. Is actually self-preservation and altruism conflate in that moment. And it's the only time in the movie that really happens, where her altruism actually saves her life.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think that's pretty fucking interesting. And I can abide the silly moments because I think those themes still, for the most part, hold together reasonably well.
I guess that's
and
the
they
thing.
also are fun to watch.
So how do you justify the transformation of like a serious movie to a very, very silly movie and us accepting like, okay, I'm in a silly Raimi movie now? where like
'Cause
the thread still wants you to take it seriously, wants to deliver those moments, but you have this like woman jumping off a water tower. You have this like also like this whole idea that Justin Long owns this building, and like I couldn't stand the like homeless man just delivering this dialogue of like, I know exactly what's going on. Let me spell it out for you dummies.
I agree with
of
that.
Like this guy, he lives in the basement. It's like, how would Justin Long buy this house if this man is never dead? How did anybody renovate this house without, he's like, this woman, she comes out every night. It's like, well, then why didn't she snatch them up the very first night when fucking Skarsgard's just sleeping on the couch? It doesn't make a lick of sense.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
not
there's
that-
holes.
to me, there's holes, and like
It's
I don't,
like huge holes.
but that's the thing is like I don't feel
how would
bothered
Justin
by
Long
it
buy
because
this house if this man's not dead? He owns
This is
the
what I was
house.
saying
He's
earlier,
owned it
though,
for
like,
like
the
40
nuts-
years.
the nuts and bolts. What do you mean? How would he like? That man is like you can. I don't know. I don't want to get into the weeds with that because I think Rob's right. Like that's the theming is the through line, not the plotting.
Totally.
The theming is what carries
I
me through.
agree.
The fact that it ends the way it does, the fact that like the characters behave the way that they do, those things are the things that the movie is built on. It's not built on a slab of, like logistical timelines or anything like that. It brings those in, and therefore you can criticize those things, and you should. Like that's fair. But to me, I'm carried through by the slab that's underneath it, which is these thematic through lines and these characters that I think are written true to what the characters are meant to be.
Mm-hmm. See, I really just think that there's a drop off in quality of how that thread is delivered, because I agree that the thread's there and the thread's very interesting, and like in some ways it's pulled off very good. But what I saw in the first act was two great actors playing off of each other. You could tell her reluctance and her personality without her having to like spell it out for you. Skarsgård does a great job, and I love the tension that pushes and pulls there, and how these things are able to be delivered. And then you have to take this jump to the third act where this like homeless man is just like, let me tell you what's going on here. And then once he tells you, you're like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And I know it
That's the
doesn't make any
worst
sense
part,
because I've
honestly.
just been watching this shit. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And so it really like, that's why I was saying it like kind of cuts its own legs off in some way, because it's just like, it sets it up. To me, this is how I perceive it. It sets it up, and I understand the theme from the very first act. And I think that it's pulled off well, because I'm like, I'm following this woman. And even though I'm a man, I like understand her perspective, and I feel it. I feel her tension, and they're delivering it so well. And then by the end of it, I'm just like, they're ramming so many things in a kind of like heavy-handed way. And then like it's like seems like all the craft is gone, and the silliness, it just like it drowns me in like not being able to take it seriously anymore. But it's still like, no, the serious thing is still here, still take me seriously, even though this complete tonal shift has happened, and I can't take it as seriously as I want to, and it needs to be taken. I feel like, I don't know, it's just, that's how I experienced it this time.
I think that's fair to say. The thing is, there's multiple ways to experience this thing.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I think that we're all pretty hardwired, like as general moviegoers, to go into movies with the expectation that certain things are like, that's how you subvert expectations. We have expectations for how a movie's structured, what its baseline is, and what it's playing with, and what it's subverting. And I think that this movie doesn't play with it doesn't start itself, it doesn't base itself in the most typical method of storytelling, the most typical thing. Like I said, it creates a slab about this theme on which it builds. And normally when you see that sort of thing, it's something that's like so wackadoo that you have to sort of like interpret at it. And this movie's like really, really having to struggle with itself because it doesn't want to do that. It wants to kind of try both, and that's maybe it's failing, but it may also be what makes it so unique and interesting.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig the theme, and that's what makes it all work for me. The first time I watched it, I kind of got hung up on some of the stuff that we've been talking about, and the second time through, like the it just sort of like the ending specifically really landed for me and resonated. And I was like, oh, wow, that is actually very powerful. Even though it's goofy at the same time, the point landed really strongly for me. And I think it's an interesting idea to play with, leaving women no other option than to like become a monster by way of just like repeated monstrous actions, by several men in this movie, actually, not just one, but I don't know. I dig what the movie's playing with. I think the casting was phenomenal across the board, honestly. Justin Long being such an asshole, but if it was cast differently, where he was like, a musclehead jock, he would be extremely one note. And then, Bill Skarsgård being this guy who like we have known to play these like really terrifying roles in the past, like being cast to actually be a pretty decent guy. I don't know. It's smart.
What's interesting though is like the way that these characters are introduced it's almost like they're going in increased these characters, the male characters. So you're introduced to Skarsgård, who you pretty much revealed he's a decent guy, if a little headstrong, maybe. Then you have Justin Long, who's just like the worst shithead and then you have Richard Brake, who is the subject of serial killer podcast for all of time. Like if anybody found that shit, it would be like the biggest news, because he is like definitively one of the worst human beings that has ever graced the earth. They kind of ramp that up. But what's interesting is like from the theme's perspective, it kind of seems like it ought to be backwards, where the people you trust the least are the ones you expect to be shitheads. Like I don't know. I could see another version of this movie where it ramps up to the person that you trust the most, then the subversion being like, but he's actually a pighead. He's the one that put you like, because in this movie, he's the one that insists they go back down there, and like not without reason, but if you either trust somebody or you don't, and he's not trusting her, I don't know. Like he's putting her in danger because she cares enough about people to follow him into a situation she knows is dangerous. So it's just this weird fucking, like, it's like her relationship with her boyfriend, all that stuff. It works the way it is, but it's interesting to me that it could kind of be reversed in terms of like the boss levels that you reach, like conceptually, it seems like it should be backwards, but nuts and bolts wise, it makes a ton of sense the way it is. So I don't know. Just kind of spitballing that.
Yeah. You guys want to go ahead and rate this thing?
Sure.
So out of 5, let's go ahead and do this. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Barbarian?
Okay. So I'm on the other end of this, where I like the first time I watched it, I liked it pretty good. Like I said, it was fighting for a top 10 spot, and I liked the kind of pure thrill of the horror of this aspect. I remember even the first time I saw this, the like woman, I was like, okay. A bit of a malignant moment where I was like, I feel like they're trying to do something different here. And, it's not great. And that's why a lot of people don't like try to do a lot of different things, because it's hard to pull off different. But the thrill carried me. The pure horrorness,
pure horniness. I felt
the pure horrorness of it all really kind of carried me through it. And I really did agree. Like, that was I could imagine that was a great theater experience or something like that. But when I had to watch this again and like analyze it and talk about it, there was just too many problems. And I'm surprised at Mr. Lodge over here, because there's just like, there's too many things that it asks you to accept that you just can't. With as grounded as it makes it, it's like Justin Long would have never been able to buy this house. How does this homeless man know what's going on in here? Why is this mutant woman giant, and how can she rip a man's arm off? Like, I understand the shifting of tone makes you want to like not believe it, but setting that foundation and carrying that thread through makes it like almost impossible for me. And this time around, like there's like a million different ways for this woman to prove who she is. Her car is right there. She can go to a hospital. Like, it just doesn't make sense for her to go back to fight this monster at night after the police leave. Like, you just like really have to accept that the plot has to move along and this woman has to be in danger for this to be a thrilling movie for it to make sense, because otherwise it doesn't. And it asks you to do that too many times, which I think is like, if I have to do it once or twice, you know, I can stretch it, but it like stretches itself too thin. There's like 4 things in here that just like make zero sense to get where you need to go in order for this theme to kind of be pulled off, but in the silly way. And like, I think Randy said it, like, it kind of wants to do it all. And I feel like a lot of the times those are conflicting, the goofiness versus like where I need to actually take the plot versus the theme needs to be delivered. I feel like those things are at odds too many times for me to just accept it. I can accept things if they're kind of established or the mood is set that way or the tone is set that way. But when you set it up one way and then it just felt too conflicting for me. This time around when I really needed to think about it. I do agree with the casting, though. I think that Justin Long did a really good job. But then also that character felt a little heavy-handed, in my opinion, as well. Whereas like Skarsgard was very smart in the way that they kind of played with that. I felt like they dropped off in their quality of writing in a little bit, where they literally needed to show you Justin Long's bar scene of him like admitting to rape. I felt like the first act was better at this kind of push and pull of did he, didn't he, is he, was he? Whereas like the third act really like just dropped it and was like, let this homeless man tell you exactly what happened. Let me shoot the scene to tell you exactly what Justin Long did. And it lost some of its kind of like cleverness to be able to make the viewer not be able to know and make their own kind of decisions. And I just like, I felt like there was a serious drop off in quality amongst several things here. So for that, ultimately how I feel about this movie second watch around, it's still good. There's like great shots, great acting, and it's like smart acting and casting and stuff like that. But I'm going to give it like a 3.25, and then I'll give it half star for the Yabos. So we'll give it a 3.75.
All right.
Hoisted by your own petard.
I know. Really, you know, but man's got a code. Bob, out of 5, what are you going to give? Boo. Barbarian.
Well, very quickly, I feel like I have to address the Lodge comment that you made. The Lodge needs you.
Do we have to?
It demands you to take it seriously from start to finish. This movie doesn't. That's all I'll say.
It sets itself up to be taken seriously.
The entire runtime of the movie does not. I don't want to talk about The Lodge really ever again. I like this movie in a lot of different ways. Of course, the cast is amazing. I don't think we give enough props to Georgina Campbell. Really, she really does like carry this movie. Like specifically the first half. Like you experience it so intensely through her POV and like how she's like playing it step by step because she's like not sure about this Skarsgard feller. He looks a little creepy. It also bothered me when they're having a conversation at the dinner table, and she's saying, you know, she's applying for this job because she wants to be a research assistant for a documentary being made on this group that he just happens to be intimately involved in. And I was like, that's a little like too coincidental. I didn't love that. It just adds to the red herringness of Skarsgård, though. At the end of the day, I think the cinematography is extremely well crafted. The juxtaposition between like everything that's shot above ground and below ground, I dig all that shit. The creature effects are solid. It's very horrifying, and it seems to be mostly practical, anyways. The score was also really cool. The movie starts when she pulls up to the house, and you just hear this like chorus of like haunting ass female vocals like laid on real thick, which just sort of like adds to the theme of what the movie is getting at. You know, underneath this house, who knows how many women were murdered. It just like fits thematically, and then also when the movie sort of evolves to that like Raimi style, and also when it jumps back in time to the 80s, there's very much this like steady like driving Carpenter style synth that I dig a lot. So obviously like it's paying homage to a lot of fantastic filmmakers. The overall like theme that's being discussed in this movie, I think lands very well. I think it's it's done in a way that works for me. I get, if it doesn't quite land for Justin, I understand why. But I think it's handled pretty damn well in a very entertaining way. And even when it gets goofy at the end of the movie, it still manages to really land in an emotionally impactful way for me, anyways. So it's like funny, it's horrific, it's shocking, and I think it sticks its landing with its messaging. And it's hard to do any one of those, much less all of them, I think. To surprise, the fact that we were all surprised by this movie in one way or another, I think speaks a lot to the success of it, because we dissect horror movies every single week and have for several years. And this is the dude's debut feature. Zach Cregger wrote and directed this. It's his debut, which hats off. I think that's where I'll cut myself off, I guess. I'm gonna give this. I'm gonna land with a 4 out of 5 on this one, though. Randu, how do you feel about Barbarian?
Yeah, I think this movie, like I said earlier, its biggest flaws lie in trying to accomplish so much, and I think it lands a surprising amount of those things that it tries to do. I don't know that I have I'm not so focused on the schism that Justin was bringing up, but the schism for me is between, like, you've got this really strong theme, and like thematically and character wise and action wise, it all flows together in a way that to me works really nicely to send that message home on that. And that is your bedrock. You know what I mean? But it's playing with a lot of facts and figures and dates. And, there's a lot of logistical things that you can poke holes in that just serve to distract ultimately. Like, part of me wants to just I can gloss over them because the rest of it I feel like is strong enough. But at the same time, it's not hard to understand why somebody would get hung up in the weeds with that, because it's bringing those things to the table. And so it's fair to criticize them, period. Like you, if you're going to do this, it's not like David Lynch where this is like all complete wackadoo nonsense and you're like filtering your feelings through it to find out what the meaning is, the nugget at the middle that you think it's trying to get across. The nugget is pretty apparent, and the nuts and bolts of how things work are an easy distraction, an easy rabbit hole to get yourself stuck on. Experientially, I think this movie is kind of top notch. I think that the way it's shot is fucking great. I agree with Rob. I like the dichotomy between the way it's shot at the top, above stairs, and beneath the stairs, or beneath in the tunnels. I just love every tunnel scene. I love the fucking, it uses really smart methods of doing jump scares. It uses measuring tape as a jump scare. It sells forward those little things that really work, and that action really just pays off for me. And then it still lands the thematic thing. I don't mind that it goes off in silly directions, because it's still wiggling on the same baseline. Do you know what I mean? It's still playing in the same, whatever major chord or whatever, even if it's changed pitch halfway through or gradually or whatever. It just works, I think, overall, but it's not hard to see. It's not, I know this because this is how I experienced it the first time, getting hung up on the details. A movie that doesn't land those things doesn't get my same level of grace. And that's just the ultimate truth. So I still see it as something of a flawed movie, even though it's ultimately a movie that I think is still deserves to be in my top 10 and would remain there after seeing it a second time this week. So I think I'm going to give it a 4 as well. I toyed with doing a 3.75, but I've talked myself into liking it more as we've sat here. So flaws and all, I think that this is an absolutely auspicious start to any director's horror making career. I'm excited to see what comes next for him.
Hell yeah.
If I was a betting man, I would say his second is not going to be as successful. You
always bet on the sophomore slump.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. I just if this one seems too gimmicky, and it seems like if I had to guess, his short based on this was probably stronger than I feel this movie actually accomplished. And I could easily see him slipping and falling on that.
I don't think he made a short. He wrote one and then decided to make a feature.
I gotcha. Okay.
But with Randy's 4, that's going to put our aggregate at a 3.9. Let's jump over into a Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Barbarian.
Certified fresh to death.
I love going to Bojangles and getting that Barbarian biscuit.
Blueberry biscuit.
Extra icing.
All right. This is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to give these two gentlemen a chance to guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive scores are for Barbarian, and that's both critics and users. We're going to start, as we do usually, with the critics. There are 198 critical reviews aggregated on RottenTomatoes.com. I'll start with Juice. What percentage do you think of those reviews are positive?
Dude, this movie got a lot of praise this year. I don't know. We ranked it 3.9. I think it's going to be higher than that. I'm going to take my boys, 86.
Project 86. All right.
Mhm.
Bob, how about you? Where are you going with it?
I think it's going to be a little higher. I'll take a 90, please.
90. All right. Well, Bobby, congratulations. You are just 2 points off. It's a 92% certified.
Whoa. That is high for a horror film.
That's really high.
It is high for a horror film. Yeah, for a new property horror film for sure.
That's
I don't think
very
it's high for this movie though, because I think ultimately, most critics are going to find more to like than dislike in this movie. I think that makes sense.
I'm curious now what Malignant was. Did people love that or hate it?
No,
I can't remember.
I think it was very split.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was way more polarizing. The critics' consensus reads as follows: smart, darkly humorous, and above all, scary. Barbarian offers a chilling and consistently unpredictable thrill ride for horror fans. So,
That's fair. Like that's pretty, that's pretty on about what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to our audience score. There are 1,000+ viewer ratings for this film. Bob, we'll start with you this time. Where do you think those reviewers are going to land?
I still think it's going to be high. I can't imagine it be higher than 92, though. That seems like too much. I'm going to go with an 82, please.
82 percentile. Juice. How about you?
That's a good guess. I don't know. I'm going to go a little lower and say there's going to be some dissenters here. So I'll say 75.
75. All right. Well, Bob, you didn't get the sweep today. Juice is going to take this one as a 71%.
That's Yates. Soju's man of the people this year. Man of the people.
I love when we get the chance to do this. There's an audience says section.
Nice.
Which reads as follows: the less you know going into Barbarian, the better. But be prepared for an ending that might rub you the wrong way. That also seems accurate to our review just now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That scene of her like jumping off the water tower, Yabo's flying.
Yeah. Just
I was
airing
like,
them out.
I was like, this is dumb.
Yabs are popping.
I just couldn't help but just shake my head and say, like, this is dumb. They've taken me to a weird place that I just can't overlook anymore.
I won't overlook this anymore. Not with Yabos flying.
I can't.
Well, I'm looking through, and most of the negative reviews are not so negative. They're all at like 2.5 out of 5 and shit like that. I'm trying
and
to
that's
find
fair.
those.
I mean, this still has a lot of good. Luckily, this thing like builds itself up with a lot of good crafts. That, like, you know, even though it does present those holes, it's like it's easy to see why it's easy to step over them. You know,
totally. I'm trying to find one that seems funny, but I'll just read this one, which I think is also pretty fair to say. The page just fucked on me. So I'm not going to read that one. I'm going to instead go to the audience and see if they have something horrible to say about this movie. Here's with half star. Effing terrible, boring AF.
Oh,
half
God.
Star.
What a review.
Horribly corny. I just hate the tropes so much. Half star.
I don't agree with that.
Awful from start to finish, full of bad plot and messy acting. It is a total mess.
If anything, the
Star.
acting is what carries like a shit ton of this.
I feel like we're in the Uber era, man, where like you're either voting like 4 or 5 stars or it's a half star. There's no fucking gray area for people. Yeah, that's the Rotten Tomatoes segment. I think we're going to call it on this one. Nice split between you guys.
Right on. There's actually a decent amount of trivia for this, so let's jump into it.
It's totally time for trivia.
This movie was pretty damn successful. It was a budget of $4.5 million, and it grossed $45 million. And I'm sure whenever they do finally release it on Blu-ray, it'll make even more. Richard Brake, your boy, shared a story on Instagram about attending a late-night screening of the movie, noting that a particular group of teenagers were sitting a few rows behind him, really into the movie, really terrified. When it was over, they were leaving the theater, using the flashlights on their phones. When the light accidentally caught Brake's face, the teens recognized him from the movie, screamed, and ran out of the theater in fear. That dude is
I gotta take a dump. He's scary looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he plays characters that fit that mold.
Yeah.
This is the best Brake role I think I've seen, which isn't to say
he didn't really do a lot though.
He didn't, but he didn't really have to. He's just his actually presence and the way that it was shot, like from behind shots.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh man.
Surprisingly, he's better in Rob Zombie's 31.
You think so?
I don't agree. I mean, he has way more to do in that movie for sure.
Yeah, at least that opening dialogue.
Yeah.
I
don't think
he's
anything he
slavishly devoted to the writing, if nothing else.
In this movie.
No, he doesn't do bad. I just don't think he really does it. He doesn't really do a lot.
He doesn't. He kind of doesn't have to, and maybe that's to his benefit. But it works, man.
Zach Cregger originally offered the role of AJ to Zac Efron, who turned it down.
Oh, that would have been weird.
Which caused
I don't know, that could have been great.
I don't know if it could get much better than Justin Long.
I wouldn't trade Justin Long, but if they had done that, it would have been such like a, I don't know. It's like casting Justin Bieber in that role or something. It's like taking the squeaky clean thing, the object of desire, and just like making them such a shit heel motherfucker. Yeah. I think that could also have some value. That Justin Long's just good at playing this kind of thing. But if somebody who in their outward life was a little bit more, buttoned up, and they took it there, I would like that too. I think.
The Hollywood Reporter expose on AJ that's written in this movie was written by someone named Kim Masters, who is a real-life reporter, and in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein cases, she became known for breaking a lot of stories about men in the film and TV industry. So that's a real person, Kim Masters.
Interesting.
This movie is set on 476 Barbary Street is the address. The year 476 was when the barbarians invaded Rome, and director Cregger insists that this was purely coincidental, but...
Yeah, we didn't even talk about, like, the title.
I can talk about it right now.
Okay, do it. Well, good. What a great segue. We planned.
Wow.
The title Barbarian works on several different levels. The term barbarian originated in ancient Rome. This first one is a bit of a stretch for me, but Romans would call non-Latin speakers barbarians because their language sounded like bar to their ears, which is similar to the vocalizations of the mother who's trying to say baby in the movie. I think that's coincidental as well. The other more obvious reference is Frank kidnapping and raping women, and their offspring is just barbaric in and of itself, and the more it's set on Barbary Street, so Frank would be barbarian, I guess, which is
okay. That's clever. There you go.
Yeah, the street name is what I was like. Okay, yeah,
I didn't pick up on that. Okay,
yeah. I don't know about that whole thing about. I think it's clear that this is not a Robert Eggers level amount of research put into this film, so I don't trust that that's anywhere near true.
Please give me the eggs. I need my eggs back.
Boy. They're good for you.
Although not officially credited in any way, Jordan Peele was an invisible hand in shaping the eventual story of this movie. Georgina Campbell told IndieWire in an interview, Cregger is good friends with Peele, and they were speaking a lot while he was writing the movie, and Jordan Peele even saw an early cut of it. And so I guess he was giving him some advice throughout the course of this.
All right.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Know what you need to do, my guy?
Dude, there's nothing quite like having the hand of a fucking world-renowned horror director help you out with your first horror film. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, smart choice. The film's special effects are largely done practically. Cregger had a soft rule for himself when making the movie. He didn't want to use any technology that John Carpenter did not have while making the 1982 version of The Thing. So apparently the biggest
awesome.
The biggest digital effect they did was in the flashback to the 1980s.
Oh.
They had to like color the grass green digitally because they tried to plant some and it all died. So that's
now that's a Fincher move.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Also, this will be the last thing. The screen aspect ratio, which we didn't talk about this specifically, but it shifts from a widescreen to an older standard ratio when the story shifts from present day to the 1980s.
I did not even notice that either time. How did I not notice this?
Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Cool shit. So yeah, that's all the trivia I have for Barbarian. Let's go ahead and talk about the easiest Cooters of the week, probably, that we're ever going to talk about. Here we go.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what's a Cooter and why do we hunt them?
Oh, Cooter's character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter. We want the Cooter with the most points. 5 points of Cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, let's roll into 2023 with a good haul of Cooters. Who you got?
Man, we got a nice bundle of collars to make in this.
This is going to be a double tap, I think. Probably.
I think it's got to be, man.
Yeah.
Nah, I just don't see it. Nah, just, so you want to start?
I can't throw another Justin in the clink.
Surprisingly, I think Justin Long might be the bigger Cooter, maybe because we spend more time with him and have more details about him.
Well, let's start with him.
Okay. Well, so he's also, the big one for the other guy is going to be sexual deviance, but Justin Long is also absolutely going to hit sexual deviance.
Check.
So check-a-rooney on that. Manipulation. Check. Even in the very end, the very end, like you were slipping. I mean, what could I? I mean, that's just like, oh my god,
he shot her ass. Oh my god, that's fucking
yeah. Which, you know what, I like that aspect of like him shooting her by accident. You know, but like even the gaslighting, it was a little too heavy handed. Of like you're slipping it. It's like they started to slip a little bit with that character, but nah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, so he's manipulative also too, going into, you know, his whole situation surrounding the rape that's going on. Even, you know, I thought he played it well in the car scene where he's like, what was she saying? I raped her or whatever, you know, because it even creates that kind of doubt of like, you know, what's really going on with this character.
I mean, I guess so. To me, like, maybe it was the second watch that really I was like, man, this is great acting. This like, what? Yeah. What, me?
What? Yeah. Are you shit? Yeah. I just like, he played it well. Yeah. Smug arrogance. Yeah. Even when he's just like so stoked about getting the extra footage and being so oblivious. Even too, when he like falls down in the pit, like, I know you're scared and shit, but also she's like, don't fucking freak out. And he's like, I'm not staying down in this pit. Or it's like, bitch, like, just listen to the person who's in the pit.
Dude. Maybe you wouldn't have had to suck on a gnarly elbow if you listened to more.
I mean, you know.
Half star.
What else? Looking attire. The stash. Can we give him the stash?
It didn't stick out to me.
Did he? He had a stash in this, right? It's weird now because I'm looking at his baby
You're
face.
thinking about Tusk, maybe.
Are you?
Maybe I am thinking about Tusk.
I think you're thinking about Tusk.
I might be.
He was a Cooter in that too. In fairness, now he's got a little bit of. He's got like 5 o'clock shadow, but he doesn't have like.
No, okay. I am thinking about Tusk then. I love that movie so much. It's just no, he doesn't. He doesn't have the stash in this. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, his looking attire is generally normal, which is kind of part and parcel to the Cooterdom. Honestly, the fact that he is so normal makes it worse almost.
Yeah. Was there anything he was wearing? I guess not. Oh, I wish he had the stash.
I don't think so. But patheticness?
Yes.
Dude. This guy is the dumbest motherfucker in the. How are you going to go all the way down this hole just to like measure it? You don't notice that this is a fucking cold chamber.
Yeah.
You don't have any concern about the bloody handprint.
Also, too, like I love how his little moment, especially once you know like what kind of character he is, when even his like accountant or whatever drops them, he's like, I'm gonna, and he's like so oblivious. He's like, I'm gonna give you your files back at the end of the week, and he's like, well, that's great. You know, what does that mean? He's just like such a fucking piece of shit.
Like, you really shouldn't have left this. You really shouldn't have left California. He's like,
you're fired. As a client. Get the fuck out.
Yeah,
man. So that's 4 out of 5. Pretty fucking strong Cooter for Justin.
Strong,
real strong hit.
Let's get a Richard break.
Frank, yeah. Sexual deviance, obviously. Check.
Oh, check.
A multiple rapist / murderer.
You know what this also? You know what this also reminded me of, though? The situation was that Rick and Morty episode where that guy's stuck in Fruity Land, where he.
Oh God. Oh God.
Similar kind of situation going on there.
I mean, yeah, you're really straining the strength of the word similar, but sure.
That's just what it kind of made me think of. But so yeah, I mean, he's kidnapping women, raping them, raping their children, and keeping
Jesus
them.
Christ.
And, it's terrible.
I feel like it should get an extra chamber of sexual deviance filled up.
Filling the chamber. Manipulation. So we see him like go and pick his victims.
Dude, the way he gets into in that woman's house churns my goddamn stomach. So
I like the way that they like played that out, though. That was a good,
it's very like
storytelling.
BTK killer.
Where it was just kind of like insinuated. You know what's going on, but it makes it all that more like chilling. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was smart. So yes, manipulation, smug arrogance.
Yeah. I think we get the biggest taste of that when we see him like walking around the grocery store, talking to the clerk, and they're like helping him find everything he needs. And like, he doesn't like falter for a second. He doesn't stutter. Like, he's just so calm.
He's
cool,
not
and collected.
nervous.
Like,
he's a lizard.
He knows what he's doing, and he's not fucking worried about a single thing. It's fucking
And when his neighbor comes up, it's like, "Oh, are you moving?" And he's like, "I'm not going anywhere." Just like the pig-headedness in that. Yeah, he's smug as fuck. This guy is not going anywhere because he identifies his life there as, it may also be because he keeps women chained in the basement and probably can't go anywhere anytime soon, but whatever. Yeah. I just think it works for that.
So patheticness.
I mean, he's
old and like decrepit. So, I mean,
he lives in a fucking tunnel.
Yeah. Well, he also just like lives in his own filth. That's pretty pathetic. I mean, like if it were a normal old person, then sure, that's very sad. But but he's it looks like he's just sitting there, just like watching his old jerk off videos. Ooh.
Which is pretty fucking pathetic. Okay,
that's pathetic. Okay, looking at attire.
I think that two things strike me. One is him as an old man. Like, he's obviously
his old skin.
He's not looking so hot.
Ugh,
I don't know that it's
got
particularly
that old man smell.
See that guy's balls? Funny
weird.
There was 5 of them.
Ooh, a knuckle. No,
it gives a new meaning to the white knuckler, huh, boy?
And then the other thing is like what I noticed was his like fucking his jumpsuit, his like Michael Myers jumpsuit that says Carlos on it, and how like how coolly he walks around in this fucking thing that says Carlos on it, and not even his next door neighbor like questions this or even brings it up. It's just there's something about that, man.
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't even pick up on that.
He hides in plain sight so well that even like obvious tells like that don't fuck him over.
Frank Carlos.
But your name's Frank. What's the deal?
Last name's Carlos.
Middle name Carlos.
Yeah.
Frank Carlos.
So,
Carlos.
Are we going to give him 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5?
What was our last one?
Was the Looking at Tire.
I'd give him a low level 5.
I didn't pick up on the Carlos thing, so I'm willing to accept that.
Sure. Let's give them all 5. Fuck it.
So who's Cooter of the week?
Cooter.
Well, then Richard Brake would be Cooter of the week then. Because Justin Long didn't have Looking at Tire.
Right.
I think he's the obviously Cooter of the week because like both have heinous sex crimes, but it's pretty clear which.
Yeah, I was just thinking we kind of knew Justin Long in a deeper kind of way, but once we broke it down,
like Richard Brake we're left to assume committed multiple murders too.
Oh my God! He had like how many tapes in there? At least one per tape.
Sure.
Yeah. So he's definitely worse.
True.
But so Cooter of the week, Frank, followed up by your boy
Richard Brake has like gotten like 3 or 4 Cooters of the week on Straight Chillin'.
And typecast like motherfucker.
He got Doom for sure.
He's got to be the highest.
Maybe. That's the one thing we don't have on our list is the Cooter of the week. I might need to catalog. Who wants to do that for me? Yeah. Where's the
listeners out there? Who wants to do some work?
Who wants to create the Cooter catalog?
The literal catalog. You just turn the page and it's got the breakdown of all these.
Wash your hands.
My God.
Turn the page.
Wash your hands.
We got a couple Cooters. We got them locked up, throwing away the key. Good work, boys.
Hell yeah.
Let's chill out, kick back, and talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randu, what you been watching?
It's been almost 2 weeks since our last recording, so a few things, but I've also been amongst family, so it's been pretty, there's been a lot more football than anything else, which is the only time of year where that's true for me. But there are quite a few things just because of that long period. I watched through, and I think I'm caught up with Mythic Quest. I didn't really think that I liked it very much, but the more I watched it, the more I kind of like wanted to keep watching it. Still don't think it's like my favorite show of all time, but it's a pretty fun enough show, I think. I just like some of the performances in there. In particular, God, I'm gonna forget his name. The guy who plays Rickety Cricket in Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a main character in this, and I just love watching that dude do his thing. He's fucking hilarious. David something I want to say. Anyway, so that's pretty fun. I rewatched a horror short that I found out was actually genuinely from the 80s called Possibly in Michigan. It's a weird fucking thing. I forgot all about it and I stumbled across it on YouTube. It's worth a look. It's like, I want to say like 10 minutes long or something. And it's fucking weird. And it's weird. It's fucking weird. And I just filmed at a mall and I didn't realize that it was actually filmed in the 80s. I thought it was just like a modern thing based in the 80s with that sort of like, VCR aesthetic going on, but it's for real apparently.
Is it weird?
It's strange, Bob. It's quite unusual.
Interesting.
I am about 2 episodes away from finishing this first season of Severance. I'm really enjoying it. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Pretty much everybody I've talked to who's watched it has said something similar. For Christmas, I rewatched Klaus, of course. Saw the new Bob's Burgers Christmas episode, which might be my favorite that I've seen. I love it when they... what's her name? What's the youngest daughter, Bob? Help me out. Luis, when they give Luis a sappy storyline, and there's a little bit of sap in this one. Watched Glass Onion multiple times. That's a fun fucking movie. There's a lot of like people coming around to hating the Knives Out Glass Onion thing, or disliking it, or being vocally anti it, which must mean they're doing something right. I think I watched that for the first time in theaters. Like, oh man, it was just so prescient to
watch Glass Onion in theaters.
Yeah, they had a theatrical release. Like in late November. I think.
That's right. That's right. I remember when you saw that. Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's a lot of fun, and it's actually, I'm uncovering the fact that I'm just apparently big into murder mystery type things, because I also watched Murder on the Orient Express, the 70s edition, the Poirot murder, Agatha Christie story. And I think I've just didn't know this was a scratch I needed itched all this time. I love Clue. I should have probably realized how much this sort of story would mean to me. I loved Knives Out, but watching Glass Onion, I was like, you know what? I need to seek this shit out. So I did that. Let's see. I watched, because I was at family's house, I watched an old movie called Bell, Book and Candle with Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak, filmed the same year as Vertigo. And it also features the actress whose name I'm forgetting, who played Bride of Frankenstein, weirdly enough. And she plays this, it's like this goofy little romantic comedy that was apparently the inspiration for Bewitched. I wouldn't call it particularly good. Some of the shots are like, why would you shoot this? You can't see his face. Like that. There's very obvious problems with this movie, but it wasn't so terrible. It was light. I watched, and then listened to 2 true crime podcasts. One was Bone Valley, which I saw on several lists of the best true crime podcasts of the year, which is set in, I think, is it Lakeland or Lake City, Florida? So it's like right outside of Orlando. It's a lot of familiar stuff.
Be Lakeland. Yeah.
Lakeland then. Yeah. I can never keep those straight. But it's basically, it's another one of those that left me fucking fighting mad at police incompetence and all sorts of terrible things. It's worth a listen, though. It's extremely captivating shit, in my opinion. And then the other one was a 3rd season of a show called Chameleon, which I'd never heard of before, but one called Wild Boys this season. And it's about these 2 boys that showed up suddenly in this small Canadian town and said they had been living in the woods their whole lives and had escaped their parents or something, and it became a national story. But of course, there were some secrets under those secrets. So it's a pretty fucking compelling story too. Also made me mad a few times, but that's apparently the sign of a good true crime podcast for me. And then last but not least, I watched Heck, the predecessor for the upcoming Skinamarink, and I will withhold my comments on that because I do believe that might be an upcoming episode.
I hope so.
Gasp.
Well, I'll have to talk to the Iron Fist himself.
Oh, please, Mr. Fist. Please don't Iron Fist me away.
Damn.
You gotta accept the Iron Fist of Bob. Juice.
That's just the kind of prick I am.
Yeah. Juice, what you been watching?
Dude, I've been watching a lot. Once, we kind of wrapped up our episode, there was a couple ones Bob had recommended that I checked out. I checked out Kimmy, Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon. I checked out, enjoyed those, pretty good. But then I tried to get away from horror a little bit and just kind of catch some of the bigger movies that came out this year. Like I finally watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. Really enjoyed that one. Watched Top Gun Maverick. I just don't like Tom Cruise. I mean, I get it was an enjoyable watch generally. I mean, I get why it was so popular, and it's fun enough. I watched it with my parents. My dad really likes it.
Do you like regular Top Gun? Old Top Gun?
No.
Yeah, me neither. It's what's drawn me away from it. That and the Tom Cruise of it all.
Yeah. I get why it was such a big, I think it's probably better than that movie. It's really just that old school kind of blockbuster feel. It plays into a lot of those tropes and stuff. So it's not breaking any new ground, but I guess it can be refreshing in the world of the MCU. And those are the only kind of movies you get these days. So I get it. But I hate looking at fucking Tom Cruise's face. Yeah. I also watched Glass Onion. I started watching White Lotus, like a little bit.
Season 1 or 2?
Just season 1, because I haven't seen any of it, and like it didn't particularly grab me. So I'll see if I finish it.
I've been told by many people. I haven't seen season 2, but everybody I've talked to says that they prefer season 2 to season 1.
Okay,
which I liked season 1, so
they're totally disconnected, right? Like I could watch season 2.
There's one consistent character, and it's and that's it. And it's you've seen them both, right, Bob?
Yeah, I prefer season 1, but I like them both quite a lot. I think they're both good.
It's very, very orange.
Sure,
very orange.
Orange?
I
guess.
There it is, dude. Look at it again, right? It's like every shot is like
I didn't think about
orange as shit.
I just remember
struck me very strong. Like it's also to oh shit, I just lost it. What was it? Oh, The Imagineering, that Disney. I never watched it. It's on Disney Plus, and it's interesting. I'm not like a crazy Disney person. I haven't been to Disney World in a long time in Orlando, and now they built up even people rave about like MGM and the Animal Kingdom and shit. Now I haven't been to any of those, and it really doesn't appeal to me because there's so many people. Like I just can't even imagine having a good time there. Not because of what's there, just because like it's so goddamn popular all the time.
I'll tell you this though, it is deeply under the gun in term, like fans are turning on that shit because of the way they're handling ticketing and shit now.
Oh really? Well, how are they handling it?
They moved it over to an app, and you now have to pay a premium for certain rides and shit.
Oh,
it's fucking awful. It's money grubbing horse shit.
Like they don't have enough money.
I know.
They're really hurting for money. I think that's like it's been like 2 or 3 weeks. I tried to watch The Crow, but my internet was kind of poo-pooing out, so I got like 15 or 20 minutes in. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've been watching. Bob, what you been watching, my guy?
Oh, hey. We started watching the Christmas Story Christmas, and I probably got like halfway through it or so and just kind of turned it off.
Same.
Oh, the second one?
Yeah.
Dude, that's bad.
Terrible. It's the Ralphie actor. I don't know the actor's name, but he came back for this one, and he's got a family of his own now. But the character himself is identical to when he was like 8 or 10 years old, and it's the exact same character, and he has these weird like fantasies, and it feels so fucking dumb, and like I don't know. We couldn't finish it. It was terrible. Rewatched The Batman, which is fucking fantastic. I really, really enjoy that movie. It is just...
Is that the first time you watched it?
No, it's the second time I watched it. It's long as fuck, but it is
long.
Really good.
It is good.
I'm looking forward to the sequel.
Wow, Bob, looking forward to a superhero film. Whoa.
That's crazy. I also recently watched The Whale with Brendan Fraser.
Gotta check that
How was it?
It was fantastic.
Really good.
It is a huge bummer of a movie, though. It is.
Who could have guessed?
Aronofsky made a bummer movie,
but he's known for his frivolity and silliness.
It's so
actually
sad.
That movie was more positive than most of his others.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. This Brendan Fraser, he kills it. He absolutely does a fantastic job. And the movie like really rests on his shoulders. It's just big sad boy energy, that's for sure.
Oh.
So, be prepared for that. And
Be Bedazzled.
Be prepared to be bedazzled by Brendan Fraser. Last thing I'll mention is I started rewatching Treme again because
damn, you were just watching that last year, guy.
So good.
I remember you were introducing Alice to it.
Yeah.
Back when you were trying to impress her, and now you just gave up.
Desperately.
Now she's trying to get out.
So we got to rewatch these 3 shows. Okay, here we go. Treme, it's good. It's on HBO, Portrait of the City of New Orleans, Louisiana. Check it out if you are
now
interested.
I was going to say, now she knows you like Blood Diner. Ugh.
Blood Diner slaps. 5 stars. Yeah, that's it. I'll end there. So we do have one final segment, and that is, of course, our Hotline Screams.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 3 voicemails this week. I believe first up, we're going to hear from our friend Caitlin. Let's hear what she has to say.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, fellas, it's your friend Caitlin from Plug It Up. Just calling with a discussion topic for you. So like Bob, I collect physical media. I love a DVD. But a few years ago, I got overwhelmed with the space my DVDs were taking up. So I put all the discs in a CD case, like one of the flip cases, Case Logic, whatever they're called. The kind that you keep in your car in high school for all your fake CDs. A lot of Tori Amos for me. But then I recycled all the boxes, and sometimes I regret ditching the boxes, but it did free up a bunch of space for me. So I just wanted to see, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how repulsed Bob was, and see how y'all manage your physical media collections or any collections that you might have in terms of space and things like that. Love the documentary. It's great. So proud of you guys. Love you. Bye.
I'm disgusted.
Thank you. I worked so hard on that documentary, and just all my blood, sweat, and tears that went into it.
Wow.
I can only thank you for your support, and Justin and Rob too, I guess, for their small contributions. Bob, how upset are you about the prospect?
Bob, are you weeping right now?
Missing boxes.
I'm not really disgusted. I empathize. I understand that you only have so much room to work with, and you got to do what you got to do. You can't sleep on a pile of blues, unfortunately.
You Lord knows if you really tried. You were dedicated.
You didn't try. So I feel for you, Caitlin. Yeah.
What a deep pull.
Yeah, I know. I might one day have to do something similar, but we'll see. We'll just have to see where the road takes.
Just have to see where we're at in 6 months.
Yeah, I mean,
6 weeks.
Just see how much more furniture we have to get in 3 months.
I'm just gonna one day the floor in Jacksonville is gonna start rumbling, and then just blues are gonna burst out of Rob's front door, and he's gonna slide down. Oh God. The blue wave.
Luckily, Bob's got a whole room dedicated to those blues.
So my horrible secret is that I also have done this, and the reason was pretty
secret.
Gasp.
I used to collect the shit out of DVDs or whatever, and then once Becky and I sort of hit the road and did a traveling lifestyle for a few years, that just had to go away. But I still wanted to keep a majority of those things. So the few of them that I thought were maybe valuable or important enough to me to keep in a box, I just stored away. And then I put pretty much everything else into this big ass motherfucker of a CD case. And yeah, now I really regret it because I barely fucking used that thing. I barely cracked it open on our travels. And I really wish that I had all those things now, even though I don't think that I would really have a lot of space for it. So the way that I approach it now is I only really buy, for the most part, movies that I'm sure that I will watch or that are extremely hard to find otherwise. So I for example, I just bought It's a Wonderful Life, which I know I'll watch every year, things like that. And I try and buy a nice copy and I keep it. And if it's not going to fit in my console in front of my TV, and which is basically one shelf, then I'm not going to keep it,
Yeah. So, before I moved to Korea, I had a lot more collection of things. I was never big into movies because even then we had Blockbuster and streaming and Netflix. So, but I had a lot of books, games would probably be the things that took up the most space for me. And so I did move all my games to a CD case and got rid of all the cases, and stuff like that, which doesn't really bother me. One of the big things too, with the books is I kept the ones that were either sentimental or ones that weren't just it's a book that you can get anywhere at any time. If I really wanted another copy of 1984 or some shit. Like I can get it anywhere for 50 cents at the fucking thrift store if I needed to. So, I have collected a lot of things, but it's never really like struck my soul to get rid of some of it. And in some ways it kind of feels better. And I wonder at what point we have to declare it like collecting versus hoarding, in the case of Bob. We'll have to what's the fine balance between those things?
For those who are like terminally online like myself, Red Letter Media just released a pretty fucking interesting video on this very topic about the value of collector's items and things like that. It was pretty interesting, pretty even-handed, and naturally it was pretty funny in the end. So I would recommend that. I think it's
the value, like physical, like monetary.
They have like collecting certain things, like their big crux was like people are collecting VHS tapes now that are sealed in these packages with grading on them. So if they're sealed in a package, you don't even know if they fucking work. They may they make the argument like it may have been stored next to a magnet for 30 years. It may not have anything on there, but people are grading them and then putting them on eBay for thousands of dollars. Now. And so they kind of like use that as a jumping off point about, okay, what is actually valuable to people? What is speculative market versus actual, honest collecting or whatever they want to call it. Yeah. It's interesting.
I only collect magnets and VHS tapes, so I'm fucked.
All my recording equipment uses huge magnets, Bob. Did you know that? So all of your blues are like...
I keep magnets in my underwear at all times to draw out the testosterone, I've heard that works.
The dookie.
Testosterone is metallic, so,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Magneto told me all this. He's a guy online. You wouldn't know.
It's kind of a nerd culture thing. You wouldn't really know about Magneto.
We spent a lot of time on that. Thank you, Caitlin, for calling in and saying hey and posing that question. We got 2 more voicemails we got to get to.
Let's do it.
Next up, I believe, is the Librarian. Let's hear what she has to say.
Librarian?
What up, nerds? So I am calling in with my top 10 of 2022. However, I would like to quickly start with my top 3 flops of the year. So in third place, we have They Slash Them. This movie was a hate crime, pure and simple. I need someone arrested for this movie. Second place goes to Halloween Ends. I am hard with Soju. David Gordon Green can meet me at a Target parking lot. And in first place for the worst movie I saw this year, that's right, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Movie was ass. Anyway, now for the good stuff, my top 10. In 10th place, we have The Murmuring, which was one of the episodes in the Guillermo del Toro series. Andrew Lincoln is free from The Walking Dead, and he is showered and clean-shaven, and I need him in other stuff right now. 9th place is The Menu. Anya Taylor-Joy is my wife, and I thought this movie was hilarious. I can't get into my favorite parts without them being spoiled, so yeah, y'all know. 8th place goes to Fresh. I thought this movie was really funny, and I know it's not reinventing the wheel, but it did something that made me think it's really original. I don't know. I just loved it. Then number 7, we have Pikmin's Model. The accents were trash through some of this movie and were all over the place, but I loved it. I love when hauntings come back to get you in the ass, especially when you think everything's fine or that you escaped it. Number 6 is non-horror, but it is The Glass Onion. I saw this at the MoMA, and Janelle Monáe showed up to wave at us and then left, and that is okay. But the movie was great. I will be watching anything that is Knives Out and Rian Johnson. Yeah. And then in 5th place, we have The Autopsy, which was another one of the episodes in the Guillermo del Toro series. This movie was a mini movie. I don't know, whatever. It was a love letter to the thing, and I signed it. 4th place, we have Nope, which y'all can listen to my voicemail from episode 382, the Session 9 episode, to know how I felt about that. Top 3, we have X. I love this movie. Nothing was bad about this movie. Number 2, we have Resurrection. As a victim of abusive men, this movie made me feel seen. I did cry. Thank y'all very much. And number 1 is Pearl, because I just need to know where Mia Goth's Oscar is. So, yeah, that's me. Y'all have a good one.
Once again, hashtag hard with Soju, Librarian. Pearl over
her number 1 was my number 1.
That was my number 1 too.
No, her number 1 in the whatever the worst of was my number 1.
Oh yeah.
Also,
sure.
Which yeah. So hard with many of us. Let's go on. Let's move on. That I thought it was interesting. I didn't really even consider like the Del Toro Cabinet of Curiosities. Like I didn't consider that as those as films, but it's not hard to see why you would.
Yeah, some of them.
I don't know what would happen to my top 10 list or whatever. I feel like there may be one, maybe two contenders in there.
That one by old Cosmatos or whatever. That probably would. That might have made my top 10.
That one wouldn't have for me. I kind of liked the second one, the rats.
Oh, the rats.
Yeah, that is
and Murmuring was pretty damn good too, actually.
Which one was the Murmuring that she mentioned?
That's the very last one, the Jennifer Kent one with
Oh yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, I like that one too.
There's a lot of good shit in there, and the thing is, like, I don't know. It's tough because they're not all like feature length, technically speaking.
Yeah.
So questionable, but worth mentioning that those are some great fucking horror properties this year.
Yeah, for sure.
That show was fucking amazing. I hope they do another series.
It was good.
Good shit.
Me too.
GDT for the win. Thanks for calling, Librarian. Sharing your list. Some good shit on there for sure. Last but not least, we're going to hear from our boy Matt. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey, crew. It's Matt from Jacksonville. I never got to call in and say congrats on your 400th episode. Y'all hitting 400 and doing 8 years and building up the community is really awesome. It means a lot to a lot of us, so thank y'all. This is officially me sucking y'all's ass or whatever. I'm calling in about Barbarian. I had some thoughts. Basically, I break Barbarian into two movies. There's The Beginning, which is an amazing 5-star movie that's slow and intense and suspenseful and amazing. And then Justin Long shows up and turns it into like this weird ass 80s bro dude movie that I really don't like. I would literally, now that I've seen it all, I'm just gonna, the moment Justin Long shows up, I'm just gonna turn this off every time now. Even with those crazy like orc babysitter yabos, still just 2.5 stars. And that's fine. But I mean, like after The Beginning, which is 5 stars, the drop in quality and story and pacing, is just horrible. It's they can't be back to back like that. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Turn that shit off when Justin Long shows up. All right, bye.
Whoa, another listener. Hard with Soju. Whoa.
Turn it on when Justin Long shows up.
Whoa. Man of the Peeps, 2023. You're Soju. Yeah.
All right.
So, cool to hear from you, Matt. Thank you. Thank you for the Christmas card, my boy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, apparently a bunch of mail that just didn't get to me until today.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I got
for
a little late
Christmas
too. I texted him when I got it, but she give a shouts out. Matt always gives us little goodies and stuff, so I really appreciate that. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah,
we love his.
Thanks for sucking
goodies.
our assholes.
Yeah, thank you. That is one of my favorite kinks.
Mm-hmm.
You're the best.
Man, I also got to give out shouts outs to Caitlin. She joined the Slack recently and has already become like a big force there, but also has really brought in a nice straight chilling after dark element that has been,
I think maybe the sexual stories you're telling about our Slack members, you fucking creep, might have something more to do with that.
Part of the problem.
Wow.
What a surprise.
That's just straight chilling after dark. So,
we all know who the Cooter is of the cast. We know.
We got a winner.
I assume it's Blue Bomb, but we'll get to that in that. I assume it's Predator Bob.
You're not going to weasel out of this one, Juice. I saw those texts.
Yeah. They hide in plain sight.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed.
Carlos,
that's part of
it over here. Thanks for calling, Matt. Always good to hear from you. If you want to call in and leave a message for next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. A prompt I had was to throw out what your most anticipated horror movie is of 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a great prompt. There's a lot actually like that. I forget what it's called, but that one, the ship involving Nosferatu and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Last Voyage of the Demeter.
The Last Voyage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one, and then Evil Dead Rise. That poster, man. I'm not convinced it's going to be any good, but I'm so psyched about it anyway.
Yeah.
I can't help myself.
Some of the like Skinamarink I'm like really excited about.
That one's
just as something like to be like new and fresh and kind of different style. The Infinity Pool, Baby Cronenberg. I liked his last film, so I'm excited about that. Scream, I'm like trying to like be chill about it. I like that new poster. I like the little tease that they dropped. I like the idea of it being in New York. So I hope that I'm definitely reluctant because it's so quick, but we'll see. We'll see.
Maxine, baby.
Maxine is that doesn't have a release day exactly, does it?
No.
Okay.
Latter year, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely some big ones to be excited about for sure.
Yeah. Call in, let us know what you want to watch this year, most anticipated. That's going to do it for us this week here at Straight Chilling. Hope everybody had a very happy new year. Hope you still have all of your digits attached to your body. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be talking about the first Patreon pick of the first quarter of the new year. This one was chosen by your boy Naderade, and the movie is Ouija Origin of Evil.
Whoa!
Slam your eyeballs into it. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling. On Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. And if you do want to join in on our Slack channel, hit us up on one of those social media outlets and let us know. I'll send you a link so you can join in on the daily conversations. It is a lot of fun. Highly recommended. 5 stars. Justin doesn't make it that weird, I promise. Just a little.
All of these things were prompted, so I'm just giving the people what the.
I don't think it was that prompted.
Sure.
I'm just interacting with the crowds here.
Totally. So that does it.
Thank God for that LLC.
the liability is so.
We got so
gotta limit that liability
covered.
Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.